Hello everyone and welcome to Pension Awareness Month. My name's Catherine Murray. I'm the Training and Engagement Manager from my CSP. We're the Scheme Administrator of the Civil Service Pension Scheme. My team and I are here for the month of September to guide you through the world of your civil service pension. So Pension Awareness Month is time dedicated to help you with planning for your future, your pension and your retirement. We know from research that retirement can be a worry for individuals. Research shows a lot of people struggle to make decisions when retirement does come around. So we want to help you get prepared for your retirement nice and early so you can make those important decisions. And when you do need to make them, you can make them with confidence. So we're going to guide you through some of the key information that you need today in terms of your pension. A large part of today's session will be a question and answer session, so you are able to submit questions using the Q&A function here in Teams Live. Please do submit any questions, though don't add any personal information. We won't be able to answer any questions related to personal circumstances. And if you see a question you'd like to know the answer to, then please upvote it and we'll focus on trying to answer as many of those questions for you as we possibly can. Today's session is going to be recorded and it will be available online on Monday on the Civil Service Pension Scheme website. So if you miss some of the session or there's some key information that you want to look back at, then you can absolutely do that. So we're going to get started with today's session. I'm going to hand you over to Liliana, who's going to start guiding you through the world of the Civil Service Pension Scheme. Over to you, Lil.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you everyone for joining us. So our Pension Awareness Month sessions again are starting your journey. So it's really good to get yourselves engaged from the outset, just so you know exactly what you've got, what you can expect, and what you're going to get out of retirement. So what we're going to cover today, we'll firstly talk about why your pension is important, what you need to do, and what you need to know. We'll also talk about your alpha benefits, which is the alpha benefit scheme for your civil service pension. We'll talk about the calculations, when you can access your pension, and some examples as well. We'll also talk about your options after joining, because you do have another option called partnership, so we will delve into that as well. And we'll talk about your pension portal registration. It's a really good, useful tool to have to keep track of your civil service pension as your career progresses. So first, we're going to start with why your pension is important. Now, of course, almost certainly your pension is the most essential part of your retirement planning. We all want to have a reliable and guaranteed source of income. So when we decide to leave work, we can either lead the life in retirement that we're hoping to have or maintain the life that we've been accustomed to. So what your pension looks like and what your retirement looks like is up to you, of course. So what's important to you? What do you want your retirement to look like? Me personally, I would like to have a little acre of land with some pigs, cows, and chickens, and have a little farm to potter around through the rest of my days. But of course, your retirement journey, what you want, is going to be personal to you. So why is it important to start now? Early planning is essential because we can spend up to 1/3 of our life in retirement. So starting early gives us the best chance to plan, anticipate, and kind of build up the pension that we need for that life in retirement. Now, your civil service pension, of course, provides you your income at retirement, but there's other benefits as well. So because you're just starting your journey, there's a few benefits that you might want to kind of know. Firstly, you get tax relief by contributing. So you do get full tax relief by being a contributing member of the pension. You've got things like death benefits and ill health provisions should your health take a turn, and it gives you that peace of mind that you would be able to provide for your loved ones. So again, the pension is there for you at retirement and beyond, because it does increase with inflation as well. So it retains its value over time. So we all want to enjoy life once we leave work behind. So in terms of your pension choices, now it's civil service policy that people are enrolled into Alpha upon joining, but you do have the option to choose partnership instead. Now, there's two types of pensions in the market. You have defined benefit, which is what Alpha is, and defined contribution, which is what partnership is. Now, defined benefit pensions are most commonly found in the public sector, where DC schemes like partnership are very kind of ubiquitous. So defined contribution pensions do make up the majority of the market. Those are the investment performance-based pensions, but Alpha is defined benefit. And what that means is that you're going to get a set calculation towards your benefits. So you can anticipate there or thereabouts what you can get at retirement. There's a set calculation. You're going to get 2.32% of your earnings banked as an annual pension for your future. So we're going to go over an example calculation in just a moment, but just bearing in mind again that it is linked to inflation as well. So while you build up your alpha pension, it will maintain its value with the cost of living. Now, your employer does contribute at least 26.6% to the pension scheme because, of course, the monies have to come from somewhere. So between your contributions and your employer's contributions, that enables us to know that there's enough money to pay your benefits when the time comes. As I mentioned before, tax relief is immediate and at source, so your pension contributions come first from your pay, and then any tax deductions do come thereafter. Now, alpha is payable at state pension age, but a common misconception is that you have to take it at that point, where of course you can take it at that point, but you are able to claim alpha early from 55 on a reduced basis if you choose to do so. So we have an example here of the contributions that you guys pay. So between 4.6 and 8.05% are the level of contributions that you pay towards your pension. As you can see on the right-hand side, there's kind of a picture of the nominal value of the contributions that one might pay towards the pension. Now, as I mentioned before, alpha is a defined benefit scheme, where again, your contributions do not directly correlate to what you get from the pension. Because again, in alpha, it's the formulas and calculations set out in the scheme rules that dictate what you get. So your contribution rates are set, and again, it makes sure that there's enough money in the pot to pay your pension when the time comes. And of course, your employer does pay as well, between 26.6 and 30.3%. So again, your employer does fund a lot of the pension, and again, it's just to make sure that there's enough money in that pot. But again, your contributions don't directly correlate to your benefits, because there's a set calculation to those benefits that we'll go over in just a few slides' time. So your contributions, again, between 4.6 and 8.05%. So we have an example here where the member earned £25,000. So again, the tax relief is immediate. The member's contributions are 4.6%. So 4.6% of £25,000 means the members put in £1,150. Due to the tax relief, it's only a £920 difference in net pay, saving £230 in a year. And for that same member, 26.6% of £25,000 means this member's employer has put in £6,650 toward the pension. So your employer does on average pay around 6 times more than you do towards your benefit. And again, that is making sure there's enough money in that pension pot. So again, in terms of your alpha accrual, it is a set percentage every year that you get banked towards your pension. So our scheme year for the alpha scheme runs from the 1st of April to the 31st of March. So you do get earnings in that year, of course. So we ask your employer in a single figure what you've earned for that scheme year. So we take your figure of earnings from the 1st of April to the 31st of March every year and multiply that by 2.32%, because that is the amount of pension that you bank each individual year of active service. So no matter what, everybody does start in year 1. So no matter when you come in, you'll have earned something in your first year. So we take your first year of earnings and we multiply it by 2.32%. So again, that is the amount that you've banked in your first year. Now at the 31st of March every year, we take your annual pension and we carry it forward to the next year, because on the 1st of April, the cost of living adjustment applies to your running pension. So your pension, again, is going to retain its value over time. Now, the cost of living adjustment can be positive or negative depending on how inflation is performing. For example, this year on the 1st of April, there was a 10.1% increase to alpha. So again, the cost of living is adjusted every year. And again, as long as you're active, you're going to accrue 2.32% of your earnings each individual year of service. So you're actually building up your annual pension while your civil service career progresses. So we have an example here where the member in their first year earned £25,000. So 2.32% of that means they've banked £580 toward their pension in year 1. So already at the 31st of March in their first year, it's £580 a year that this member's banked. So we carry forward that £580, and on the 1st of April, there was a 3.1% increase. So 3.1% of £580 means this member has banked a further £17.98 toward their pension. And in year 2, their pay increased to £26,000. So 2.32% of that is another £603.20, and again, that's banked as an annual pension. So just after 2 years, the member has their £580 that they've accrued in year 1, the £17.98 cost of living, plus the £603.20 accrued in their second year. So after 2 years, at the 31st of March, this member's annual pension is £1,201.18. So again, that's an annual pension, and if the member was to take that at that point, that would be paid again for the rest of their life. So as I mentioned before, when you come to retirement in Alpha, you do have the option to take your pension early. So you can take it from age 55. Again, state pension age is the time you can take it with no reduction. So we have an example here where the member is claiming that pension at 60. So we're continuing on the example that we've just done, that £1,201.18. If the member claimed that at 60, it's reduced to £816.80 a year. Now, there is a lump sum option in Alpha, so bearing in mind if you are going to be in the Alpha pension scheme, you do get an option at retirement to take some cash. Now, there is a maximum amount you can take, and any amount would be tax-free. So also, if you do choose to leave early, the lump sum that you would be entitled to would be based on the pension you're actually taking. So if you're leaving early, it would be based on your reduced pension. So in this middle box here, you can see that the annual pension is £816.80. So the maximum lump sum option the member has is £3,500.57. Now, if you want to take any cash from Alpha, you would have to give up some pension for that. And it's £1 of pension for £12 of lump sum taken. So it's really important to note you don't have to take the full lump sum if you don't want to. You can take any amount up to that maximum cash available. In this example, the member is opting to take the full £3,500.57, which means they would have £525.09 of pension going forward per year. And again, that £3,500.57 cash lump sum to take at retirement. And again, any lump sum you take from Alpha will indeed be tax-free. Whereas if the member waits till state pension age, that £1,201.18 would give them a maximum cash option of £5,147.91. And if they choose to take that, that would be £772.19 per year that they have as a continuing pension. So again, when you come to retirement, you'll have all of those options laid out to you. And if you do want to take any cash, we would reduce the pension based on the amount of cash that you're taking. So I hope that's been helpful, and thank you very much for listening, and I'll pass you back to Catherine.
Thanks, Liliana. That was great. So really useful to see how the Alpha pension benefits are calculated and the different options that are available to you when you claim your pension at retirement. Just a little interesting fact. So the Alpha accrual rate of 2.32% is the most generous of all of the civil service pension schemes that have existed over time. So Classic, Classic Plus, Premium, Nuvos, the other schemes that you might have been a part of or you might have heard of in the past, they all have less generous accrual rates than Alpha does. So just something interesting and worth bearing in mind. And if you are thinking about finding out a little bit more about the Alpha scheme, then there's a really good section of the Civil Service Pension Scheme website on joining the scheme for the first time. It gives you lots of useful information to guide you through the key facts and figures that you need to know. So well worth taking some time out to visit the scheme website. So we're going to continue on our journey, finding out a little bit more about Alpha and also the alternative scheme that's available to all of our members as well as partnership. So I'm going to hand you now to Emily, who's going to explain some of that in a little more detail. Over to you, Emily.
Thank you, Catherine, and a big hello to everyone that we've got on today for session 1 of Pension Awareness Month, this time for 2023. So I'm just going to kind of pick up where Liliana left off. So we're still talking about the benefits of being in the schemes. So like I said, I'm just going to pick back up where Liliana left off, really talking about the benefits of the Alpha scheme and everything that comes along with being in the schemes. So Liliana spoke about the pension itself, the calculation for your benefits for when you retire. It's obviously not just about that. There are other benefits that come along with the scheme as well. So it's really important that we don't forget about them. One of the other benefits is death benefits, and there's actually two different elements to this. So first of all, we've got a death in service lump sum. That is a one-off lump sum payment that you nominate someone to receive for when you pass away. You can nominate anyone for that, literally anyone. So a family member, a friend, a charity, and you can actually have multiple nominees for that as well. So that's good if you are a bit split or undecided. You don't want to have to just decide on one person. You don't have to, you can nominate more than one if you want to. So you make a nomination either by filling in the death benefit nomination form from the scheme website, or you can go onto the pension portal, which is our online login facility, and I'll talk about that later on. The other element of death benefits is dependent pensions. So this is ongoing monthly payments for someone that meets certain criteria when you pass away. It's a completely separate thing to the lump sum. The criteria for your adult dependent is a spouse, civil partner, or cohabiting partner for the Alpha scheme. Now, you don't need to nominate the dependent. However, we do have a partner details form on the website. So if you have a cohabiting partner, it's probably worth filling that in so that we've got their details. They're not going to lose out if you don't do that, but it's just going to make things much easier for them if you do, and quicker as well. Obviously, it's a time-sensitive case. There might also be child dependents. So this is ongoing monthly payments for eligible children. Again, you don't need to nominate them, but they need to meet criteria. So the summarised version of the criteria for children is that they are in full-time education and under the age of 23. So as long as they meet them terms, they could also possibly get monthly payments. And it could actually potentially be paid to them for the rest of their life if they have a disability of some form, meaning that they can't work themselves. So I think it's just really good to know that you've got cover on the death benefits there in the form of a lump sum and the dependent pensions. And then we've also got ill health retirement. So this is if your health deteriorates while you're in service to the point where your earnings are affected, you might be able to get your pension paid early, possibly without any early retirement reductions, or possibly even with enhancements and increases to your figures, depending on the severity, which would all be assessed at the time. So the message here is it's a lot more than just an income for you for when you retire. Make the most of these other benefits that come along with it. So when it comes to your benefits for retirement, let's say you've looked at our calculators, you've got an idea of what your pension is going to look like in the future. You just need to then really honestly ask yourself, is that going to be enough for me? Depending on what the kind of lifestyle I want to live, what my expected outgoings are going to be. And if it's not quite going to be enough, you think, you've got options to top up your civil service pension. So top up options, this is where you contribute more into the scheme now to get more benefits back at the end for when you retire. So there's three different methods, shall we say, of doing that. And I'm going to come to added pension first of all. This is the third one on the slide here. So added pension is where you literally purchase more annual rate of pension in Alpha for when you retire. So you can pay for this via a one-off lump sum, as long as you've had at least 12 months service, or you can increase your contributions, your monthly contributions to pay for that. Now, an increase in monthly contributions can normally only start every April. However, you do actually have a 3-month window from when you first join service where you can set it up from your start date. So it's important to think about top-up options when you first join in case you did want to set it up from your start date. I guess the main question is, how much does it cost? We don't have a one-size-fits-all calculation for that. The cost of it is really specific to your exact circumstances at the time that you set it up. But what we do have is an Alpha added pension calculator on the scheme website that you can use to get your own figures. So put your details in, have a little play around with that and see what that would look like for you. Just to clarify a few things, the pension amount shown on that calculator is an annual pension. So it's then going to be paid to you every year in retirement. It's also going to change with inflation. So it's going to keep up to date with the value. And you've also had tax relief on the contribution that you'd paid into that. So like I say, look at that calculator, see what you think. One of the other options to choose from is EPA. And this is basically a way of purchasing an earlier pension age in Alpha rather than more physical pension itself. So how this works is you increase your monthly contributions, and then all Alpha pension that you accrue from that point onwards then has a slightly earlier normal pension age attached to it. So your options are to do it 1, 2 or 3 years early, and whichever of them options you choose will determine the monthly cost. So again, we've got a calculator for that on the website too. It's the EPA estimator. Just to be clear, with EPA, you're not buying more pension. Your pension is building up in the same way as Liliana explained before, the 2.32% of your earnings. What you're buying with EPA is an earlier pension age for what you accrue while making them extra contributions. And that can only be paid via monthly contributions, which again can normally only start every April, but you do still have that 3-month window from your start date to set it up. Lastly, on the top-up options is something called the Civil Service Additional Voluntary Contribution Scheme, or CSAVCs for short. Now, this works very different to everything that we've looked at so far. So far, everything is based on set calculations. The AVCs are invested. So they're invested with Legal and General. You pay your contributions in, invested with Legal and General, and there's a lot of different investment options to choose from. Obviously, how that investment performs will then determine the return that you get on that, and ultimately then the overall size of your pot. You then have quite flexible access options for taking that type of scheme. So you could take it as an ongoing income for the rest of your life, known as an annuity. You could take the entire thing as a lump sum. However, only up to the first 25% would be tax-free, or you can do a combination of the above. So just to clarify with these top-up options, added pension or EPA are the ones that are based on set calculations, and we've got calculators on the website that you can use for that. The ABCs are based on investments, of which there are many options, and obviously that can fluctuate. So just to clarify the difference between them. But as always, you can get more information about them on the Civil Service Pension Scheme website. So now we're going to talk a little bit about partnership. We know that you're automatically enrolled into Alpha when you join from day one. However, you've got the choice of being in the partnership scheme instead of Alpha if you would rather. But this is very different to Alpha. This is a defined contribution scheme. So that means that it's based on investments. So this does work really similar to the ABC top-up option that I spoke about before. The difference being is that ABCs were a top-up option. So that would be if you're still in Alpha as your main scheme, you're wanting to play around with investments kind of on the side. Partnership is a main scheme. So if you choose to be in partnership, that would be instead of Alpha. But it works the same. So contributions are invested, lots of different investment options, invested through Legal and General, so the same provider, and you build up this pot of money that you then have quite flexible access options for claiming that back at the end. So we'll just talk a little bit more about that. And if we now move to the next slide. So an interesting point about partnership is you can choose to be in this scheme and choose a contribution amount from zero. You can literally choose an amount from zero. Your employer would still make some standard employer contributions on your behalf. So the employer contributions range from 8% up to 14.75% for this scheme. So less contribution going into partnership than would be for Alpha, of course, but it's still a contribution nonetheless. And then if you did decide to contribute yourself, your employer would then also match up to a further 3% for this scheme. So flexibility in terms of the contributions that you can pay in. So how does it all work? As we said, they're invested, you build up this pot determined by how the investments perform, and you then have quite flexible access options for claiming it back. So we'll just talk about them options a little bit more. So first thing to say is you can access a partnership pension from age 55. That's actually the same as Alpha, because remember, Alpha has early retirement possible from age 55, so they both have the same access age. So the three options for partnership is using the pot that you've built up to purchase an income basically on the open market, and that's something called an annuity. Now, annuity rates can fluctuate quite heavily based on market performance and also your lifestyle choices as well. So there are a lot of variables that could affect your annuity rate at the end of a partnership, and that would normally then be paid to you for the rest of your life. You could also take this as a lump sum, the whole thing. However, only up to the first 25% of that payout would be tax-free, and the rest of it would be classed as a taxable income. Or you can do a combination of the above through something called income drawdown. So this is where you kind of take a lump sum here, a bit of income there, just as and when you need it. However, you do need to be careful with that option because you have a physical pot here that could actually run out. So that option, your income isn't guaranteed for the rest of your life like it would be with Alpha. You have a physical pot that could run out with income drawdown. So obviously just need to be aware of that. You'll receive a statement once a year from Legal & General just to let you know how your partnership scheme is performing. So in order to be in partnership, you could either choose this when you first join service. So when you first join, your employer will send you something called a pension choices form. So that's where you say if you want to remain in the main scheme, Alpha, or be in partnership. If you return that form within 1 month of joining, then your partnership scheme membership will be from your actual first day of service. Anything after 1 month of joining, it's something called a pension switch. And your employer normally needs at least 2 payroll months of notice to do that. And you can find the pension switch form on the scheme website, as you can with all of the other forms. You can only switch schemes once per 12 calendar months. So you could switch down the line, you can switch as many times as you want, but only once per 12 calendar months. If you are going to be entering into partnership, you also need to fill in the partnership application form from Legal & General's website just to state what your investment option is, what contribution amount you want to start with. Okay, so just to kind of summarise a little bit about what we've just spoke about. So when you actually first join service, you need to think about whether you want to remain in the Alpha scheme or be in the partnership scheme. Both very different types of schemes, as you can see. Alpha is based on the set calculation that is guaranteed for the rest of your life. And because it's a set calculation, it's really easy to project what your figures are going to look like way into the future and to then plan with that. Partnership is investment based, of which there are many options, many variables that can affect your ongoing income, but you then have flexibilities in the contributions and how you can access it. You also need to think about whether or not you want to transfer in. This is actually really important because you only have a 12-month window to transfer in from when you first join service. Once that window's gone, it's gone. So you need to give this some thought when you first join. You can go through the motions of getting a transfer in quote from us. You can either ask for that on your pension choices form when you first join service, or we've got a transfer in application form on the scheme website. If you fill that in and send that to us, we'll get you a transfer in quote out with some figures on it, and you decide from there if you want to go ahead with it. So there's no obligation until you get that quote, you see the figures, and then you can decide from there. Also think about the buying additional benefits part of it, because remember, usually that can only start every April, but you then have the 3-month window to set it up from your start date. So if you do want the additional benefits to be from your first day of service, you need to be looking at that straight away. Like I say, the calculators for that are on the website. In any case, whichever scheme you choose to be in, you should be making a death benefit nomination. This is a one-off lump sum payment that you nominate someone to receive. You can nominate anyone for that, remember. So of course, we don't know who you want it to be unless you tell us. So make your death benefit nomination. Make sure you keep on top of that as well. You can update that at any time, and you can find the forms on the website. Okay, so where do you go to view your figures? Just to clarify, the following few slides are for Alpha members. So if you choose to remain in Alpha. We've got the pension portal. This is on the scheme website, and this is the online login facility where you can view all of your details. So you would view your benefit statement on here, which goes on once a year over the course of the summer. You can check your personal details, you can update your death benefit nomination, and you can use our pre-populated retirement calculator. So it's a really, really useful platform to be registered for. Feedback that we get on this is that it's really useful. People also say, when it comes to the modeler, the calculator that I'll talk about in a second, people also say they find that quite user-friendly as well. So we'll get to that in a moment. If you're not registered for this portal, you should maybe think about getting registered, because this is where you're going to see all of your information. You will need your national insurance number, your date of birth, the name of your employing department, and also a mobile phone to hand as well. So just make sure you get all of them ready before you go on to register. So the annual benefit statements, you'll find that on the portal. This is a really important document. It's produced once a year, and it normally goes out over the course of the summer, normally by the end of August. So all of this year's should be on now. Make sure you check out for that. This shows your figures as of the 31st of March that year. So you have to be an active member of the scheme on the 31st of March to then get a statement produced that same summer, just to clarify. This document is what's used to pre-populate the retirement calculator. So really important that you give this a check over and just make sure you feel happy with the figures that are on there. The two main things I would say that you need to be looking out for is the length of service. So is all of your current continuous service on there? Is the start date correct? But also the pay figure, the pensionable pay figure that we use, because as demonstrated by Liliana earlier, them two components are what make up your pension. So make sure you're giving them two things a really good look over. And then you're good to go with the retirement modeler. So this is the pre-populated calculator. Because it's pre-populated, you don't really have to do much manual with it. You can just straight away start having a play around with some possible retirement dates. The figure that it produces for you here is with both projections, so based on you accruing more pension right up to that date, and early retirement reductions already factored in as well, if applicable. So it does kind of do everything in one for you, which is good. You've got the two sliding bars that you can have a play around with. So one is for the age, you can change the age that you're looking to claim it from. And we've got a slider bar for the lump sum as well. So if you move that sliding bar right up to its maximum, that is your maximum lump sum of 25% of your overall pot. But you don't have to take the maximum, as we know, you can take anything in between, and that's where this slider bar really comes in handy. All you have to do is move it up and down and the figures will change to reflect it. So make sure you go on to use this if you haven't already. You're missing out if you haven't. It's a really, really good tool. Make sure that you're making the most of it. Okay, so just to kind of tie all of that up and bring it all together, I know we mentioned these points similar to these points at the start, but it's always good to remind us. So why is it all important for your pension? So we know that it can provide benefits if you become too ill to work. I briefly mentioned ill health retirement. Remember, if your health deteriorates while you're in service and your earnings are affected, you've got something to call on there with ill health retirement with your pension. I think that's really, really good to know. There's also benefits for your loved ones. So the death benefits, the two different elements to it. Remember, the death benefit nomination is the one-off lump sum that you nominate someone for. And then you've got dependent pensions, which is ongoing monthly payments for a dependent adult or spouse. Let's not forget about the tax relief that you get to contribute towards these schemes. So contributions are taken from your gross pay. Your tax calculations are done based on what's left. So it's a tax-free way to save for your income for when you retire. You've also then got the employer contributions. I just want to point out that the employer contributions to Alpha, they're actually one of the highest employer contributions in the public sector. Just to make you aware of that. So that's really good to know. As Liliana said, it averages out about 6 times the amount that you pay in. So that's really good. But ultimately, your pension is going to provide your income for you for when you retire. So you need to make sure that's going to be enough based on the lifestyle you want to live and all of your outgoings. So I'm sure we don't need to, say it too many times, but it really is important that you get involved with your pension as soon as you can. I started working in pensions when I was 20 years old, and I'm really, really grateful that I did, because straight away I learned how important it was, and obviously I've been involved with it since. Okay, so thank you so much for sitting through that. Hopefully you've all found something useful to take away from it. I'm going to send you back to Catherine. So thank you so much, and we'll take some more questions in a moment.
Thanks, Emily. That was great. That was really useful. So really nice to see the comparison between the alpha and partnership schemes to understand the difference between them. And remember, everyone is automatically enrolled into the alpha scheme, but everyone has that option to switch to partnership if they prefer. And there's a really good comparison of the alpha and the partnership between the scheme on the scheme website. If you want to have a look at that again, tons of useful information there to help you make any decisions that might be relevant to you. So we're going to move on to looking at your questions now. So we have had quite a lot of questions come through. Thank you very much for those. We're not going to be able to get through all of them. We are going to try and focus on the questions that are related to today's session. So there's quite a lot of questions that have come through on different topics like retirement and the 2015 remedy or the McLeod judgment, for example. We do have multiple sessions running later during Pension Awareness Month, which focus on these topics, which of course are really important. But today's question is really, today's session is really on starting your journey in the civil service pension scheme. So we're going to focus on those kind of questions. And there are quite a lot of questions that have come through on transferring pension benefits into the scheme. So I just want to cover a little bit of information off about that first, as lots of people have been asking questions. Emily shared some of this information. So it is possible to transfer other pension schemes into your civil service pension, but that does need to take place within your first 12 months of joining the scheme. And like Emily said, once that deadline has passed, unfortunately, there's no alternative choice. There's no way you can transfer in outside of that 12-month window. So if you are new to the scheme, it's really important to ensure that you start that process as soon as possible. It is quite lengthy. It can take some time to liaise with your former scheme and get you that value. So the provisional transfer in application form is available on the Civil Service Pension Scheme website. Do please complete that and pass that in to my CSP as soon as possible so they can start that process for you. They'll give you a provisional transfer in value, so they'll show how much alpha pension that transfer in would buy you, and you can decide once you've seen that figure whether you'd like to proceed or not. So you're under no obligation until you've seen that quotation. So it's always worth getting that quote, even if further down the line you decide not to go ahead, but at least you're giving yourself that option. Okay, so let's have a look now then at some of the specific questions that have been put forward. Like I say, we'll try and focus on those that have been most upvoted, but also those that are related to the content of today's session as well. So there's a few questions about paying additional contributions we have talked about a little bit, but let's just have a little look at some of those questions that have come in. So Liliana, coming to you first. How do I overpay? Is it possible to overpay towards my civil service pension? So what options are available to pay something a little bit extra?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for that. So as Emily said, there's three options that you have to pay more towards your pension. The first being added pension. So added pension is exactly what it sounds like on the tin. That's adding pension to your alpha account. So I suppose when you want to make extra contributions, you need to think for yourself what you want that to look like. Do you want extra alpha pension? Do you want a DC scheme instead? So you've got that opportunity to do additional voluntary contributions. So again, if you do that, that would be with Legal in General. Whereas if you want to leave early, it's EPA. Now people do multiple. Some people do added pension, EPA, and ABCs. You can do them all if you want to. Now there are some limits that you need to consider in terms of how much extra you put towards your pension. A lot of information can be found on the Civil Service Pension website. So there's an added pension limit, for example, and EPA kind of ties into that limit. But for the modest saver that just wants to put a bit extra a month toward their pension, it is definitely something you can do with no problem. Now, if you do want to apply for added pension or EPA as well as ABCs, all of the applications can be found on the Civil Service Pension website. So one easy to reach place. Again, as Emily said, there is an exercise that's done once a year for added pension. So if you're looking to do that, I would say usually the deadline to do it via a lump sum is the beginning of February, where the deadline is usually the beginning of March if you're doing it via monthly contributions. Now, the exact deadlines and limits are expressed every December. So it's really good that you're getting engaged now because you've got that bit of time to price it up and see if it's something you want to do in terms of added pension or EPA, because the cost does depend on your age. So the calculators on the website now are reflective if you do start it from next year. The one thing I want to caveat is if you do want to buy added pension via a lump sum, you have to have been in service for at least 12 months to do so. But if you want to do it via monthly contributions, that's fine. Again, either in your first 3 months of joining, or you can do it in the next exercise for the 2024-25 scheme year. Now, additional voluntary contributions you can do at any time. So all you would need to do is fill in the application that's on the website. You would submit that to your employer, and they would, tell their payroll accordingly. So with ABCs, it's a minimum of £10 a month or £100 as a lump sum. So how much you want to put in is up to you. You can do more than that, of course, but that is the minimum. So again, you just want to first ask yourself, what is my goal? Do I want to buy added pension? Do I want to leave early? Or do I want to have an investment-based pension? And obviously that will then lead you to the next step. So again, all of the applications are on the website. The calculators for added pension and EPA are there as well. And yeah, lots of information about AVCs can be found on Legal & General's website. They will be able to tell you what investment funds they have. And there is a guide to investments there as well. But if you want to know more about AVCs from our side, of course, there's more information on our website as well. So I hope that's helped. Back to you, Catherine.
Thanks, Lil, that's great. And just a follow-up question that I've seen in the chat there. So someone's asked, if I choose to pay additional amounts into my pension, is that tax-free? Is it taken from my gross pay before tax is calculated and paid, so effectively worth more than the actual amount I contribute? So just a quick short answer to that one is yes. So we do take the contributions from your gross salary before tax is deducted. So you get tax relief as well as on your main scheme contributions, but any contributions you make towards things like added pension and EPA as well. So I'm going to come to Emily next. So we've had a couple of questions about the lump sum and when it becomes taxable, or if you take the largest lump sum, is it tax-free or is there a limit? So Emily, could you give us some more information about lump sums at retirement, please?
I certainly can. Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, so lump sums with the schemes, we'll talk about Alpha first of all, because that's the main scheme. So you can take up to a maximum of 25% of your overall pot value as a tax-free lump sum. You can't take anything more than that as a lump sum from Alpha. So that means that the lump sum from Alpha is always tax-free, and you can get your maximum amount on the retirement modeler that we looked at before. If you move the lump sum slider right up, the wording on it is 100% of your maximum. So that figure that shows there, it's the maximum you can take, and that's always tax-free. Any added pension that you buy is also then subject to the Alpha rules as well. So you can also then take a maximum lump sum from your added pension. And it works in the same way as earlier with a 1:12 conversion rate, where £1 of pension that you give up would get you £12 tax-free lump sum. So added pension that you purchase, also it's an option there as well. The other type of scheme, so the partnership scheme and the AVC top-up option, that's what we call a defined contribution scheme. So different rules surrounding that. With that type of scheme, you could take up to a maximum of your entire pot as a lump sum. However, only the first 25% of that payout would be tax-free. The rest of it would be classed as a taxable income. But certainly for the main scheme, Alpha, up to 25%, always tax-free, and you can get that figure on the retirement modeler. Back to you, Catherine.
Thanks, Emily. That's great. So some useful information there about taking that tax-free lump sum at retirement. So I'm going to come to Liliana with our next question. This is a question from a dual member, so someone who's now in Alpha, but previously was in the Classic scheme. So they have said, can I retire at age 60, take my Classic pension and leave my Alpha until 67?
Yeah, great question. So dual membership, we get lots of questions around this. Now, if you've moved into Alpha from Classic, Classic Plus or Premium, the only thing that's changed is that you cannot accrue any further service. That's literally the only change. Because each of the civil service pension schemes over time have had their own set of rules attached to them, they are in a sense separate benefits. Of course, they're all coming from the same place, but Classic, Classic Plus, Premium, Nuvos and Alpha are all their own pension scheme. So that just gives you a little bit of food for thought that they are separate, so you are able to take them separately. So just to answer your question specifically, if you wanted to take your classic at 60, you absolutely can. Something to bear in mind is that you do have to take it if you're either partially or fully retired. So you do have to retire in some capacity usually to take any retirement benefits from the civil service. But if you partially or fully retire, of course, you are able to just take your alpha pension at 60. Now, when you want to take your alpha, that's fine. So of course you can wait until state pension age, that's fine. But if you want to take it earlier, you absolutely can. So again, alpha can be taken from age 55. If you do choose to take it early, it would be reduced, however. So just something to bear in mind, you absolutely can take classic separately. You can take alpha again at state pension age or earlier if you wish, again on a reduced basis. So I hope that's helped. And back to you, Catherine.
Thanks, Lil. That's great. There's just a follow-up question I'm just going to quickly answer there. So someone's asked, can I continue working past 60 and claim my classic pension element at that time without taking partial retirement and continue working? The short answer to that one is no. So you do, as Lil said, you have to take a form of retirement if you want to access your pension benefits. Obviously, if you were no longer working in the civil service at that time, then that situation would be different and you would be able to access those classic pension benefits. But whilst you're still in the civil service, you can't access those pension benefits without taking a form of retirement. So a question for Emily now. So can I get a retirement quotation without putting in a formal request to take full or partial retirement?
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you to whoever submitted the question. The answer to that really is the retirement modeler. This is where you should be going to get any figures for your retirement prior to actually submitting an official request with your employer. The retirement modeler has got all of the exact scheme calculations and daily retirement calculations built into the background. So a lot of work went into this to make sure you can get really accurate figures from it. All you need to do is check your benefit statement. So remember, there was two things earlier that I said that you need to check. It was length of service and the pay. As long as they're both right, then your figures on your benefit statement are also right, and therefore you can use the modeler with confidence. So that's why it's really, really important that you check it, just so that you know for yourself, you've got peace of mind that the figures you're seeing on the modeler are reliable. Obviously, to get a quote, if you wanted to submit a retirement request, you can do that. But prior to that, the modeler really is where you should be going. And I just want to clarify as well, you would also use the modeler for any partial retirement projections. People ask us, where would I see the same kind of figures for partial retirement? Well, the same place, the retirement modeler, because the pension is calculated in the same way. So are any early retirement reductions as well. So just the one tool for partial and normal retirement. But always check your benefit statement so that you know the figures shown on the calculator are reliable. Hope that helps. Back to you, Catherine.
Thanks, Emily. That's perfect. And you did answer the follow-up question that I had there, which was the pension calculator. It only gives an estimate of your pension lump sum if retiring fully. How can I get an estimate of how much if partially retiring? But as Emily mentioned, the figures are exactly the same, whether you're fully or partially retiring. You have the same options available to you. So the modeler does both of those things for you. So I'm going to ask a question to Liliana now. So we've had quite a few questions about the 2015 remedy, or the McLeod judgment, as you may know it. So will future annual pension statements include information on McLeod judgment or 2015 remedy options? Liliana.
Yeah, thank you very much, and what a great question. Lots of work is going on in the background as we speak to make sure that we are able to provide those options for you from next year. So while your benefit statements this year only reflect the options as they are now, from next year, you should start to see what your options would be. So it's not just a surprise at retirement. So a great question, and one that we get from lots and lots of members, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of peace of mind that you will be able to effectively plan for your retirement, because you will be able to see your options as your career progresses. Again, it's not just going to be a surprise at retirement. So I hope that's helped. And back to you, Catherine.
Thanks, Liliana. That's great. So yeah, quite a few questions about the 2015 remedy or McLeod judgment. We will be tackling that later in Pension Awareness Month and some of the other sessions and giving you a little bit more detail. But certainly the retirement modeler will shortly be updated to give you those options. You can find out a little bit more. And there's tons of information on the Civil Service Pension Scheme website about the 2015 remedy should you need it. So there's a chat bot on there that you can ask questions to. And you can also use our Am I Affected tool. If you're unsure if that's an issue that impacts you or not, then the Am I Affected tool is really useful and will help you find out answers to questions such as that. So Emily, I'm going to come to you now. So can I take a lump sum at age 55 and carry on working full time? Is that an option, Emily?
Thank you, Catherine. OK, the short answer to this is no. So you can't take just a lump sum from these pension schemes. In order to take the lump sum, you have to bring the pension into payment that goes along with that. And in order to do that, you have to retire in some form. So you would have to either fully or partially retire to gain anything from it. And it can't be just the lump sum. So that's with these defined benefit schemes. So just something to keep in mind there. It's kind of good that you've asked that question now and you know the answer to it now, so that you can then properly plan for that when the time comes up that you need anything from it. With partial retirement, just to clarify, your employer normally does have to sign that off, basically. So you need to speak to your employer to see if it's something that they would be willing to offer, and that's where you would reduce your working hours or earnings and then bring some of your pension into payment at the same time. Or of course, full retirement if you wanted to completely leave the civil service. But if you don't want to do that, maybe speak to your employer about partial retirement and see if it's something that they can accommodate. Hopefully that helps to clarify. Back to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Emily. That's great. So we've got time for a couple more questions. I'm going to come to Liliana next. So how does working part-time impact on retirement, or maybe more specifically, how does it impact on your pension?
Thank you very much. Really, really good question. So the actual answer to that will depend on what pension benefits you're actually entitled to. So I know a lot of you will probably be an alpha only in the room. However, obviously from the questions we've had, there may be some people who are in one of the legacy pensions as well. So just to cover all bases, firstly, going part-time is not going to really affect any Classic Plus or premium pensions in terms of if you go part-time, your pay is based on your full-time equivalent. So that's what I mean, is that your pension for final salary benefits will be based on full-time equivalent. So if you're just simply going part-time, again, that full-time equivalent still stands. NUVOS is slightly different. Again, it's based on your earnings as well as alpha. So NUVOS and alpha are both based on your earnings for each year. So if you do go part-time in alpha, any pension that you accrue in a part-time year will take into account that, because it's based on your pensionable earnings. So your pensionable earnings are your salary, of course, but if you're working part-time, it'll be based on your actual earnings. So once you've accrued pension, that's what it is. It's just your future accrual is going to be based on your year-on-year earnings. So again, if you go part-time in alpha, any alpha pension accrual will be based on those part-time earnings. So I hope that's helped. Back to you, Catherine.
Thanks, Liliana. That's great. So I think we've got time for one more question before we get things wrapped up. So I'm going to come to Emily with this one. So what are the penalties for taking your pension prior to the normal pension age?
Thank you, Catherine. That's a really good question. You know, early retirement, whenever we talk about that, all of a sudden we find everyone really sits up and starts paying attention. So I can give you a rough idea of what the early retirement reductions are. Just to preface this by saying it is just a rough guide, it will give you a good ballpark figure. So, you know, it can't hurt to know that. The annual pension figure that you accrue is reduced by roughly 4 to 5% per year that you claim it early. That is prorated for part years as well. So I think that's really good to know. If you want something more specific to that, guess where you go? The retirement modeler. I feel like that's all I've spoken about today, but it really is a good tool. So that's got the specific calculations built in. But if you do want a rough guide, there it is. Annual pension is reduced by roughly 4 to 5% per year claimed daily. Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, Emily. That was great. And that's the last of the questions we've got time for today, unfortunately. Now, sorry if we didn't get to your question today. If you have outstanding questions, then something you might like to consider is attending one of our Pension Power sessions. These are 1-hour sessions financed by the scheme manager that we run by webinar every single weekday, and they're in quite small groups. So we always get through all of the questions that are answered on those sessions, and you'll find further information about Pension Power on the Civil Service Pension Scheme website. On there, you'll also find more information about Pension Awareness Month, and it'll tell you where you can watch the catch-up video for today's session if you'd like to watch it again. On there also, there is a feedback survey. Do please give us some feedback and let us know how you found today's session. Was it useful? Is there something else that you'd like to see from us? We want to try and ensure we can make these sessions as useful as possible, so you can really get the most from your civil service pension. So do please tell us how you feel and what it is that you're really looking for. So that's all we've got time for today. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. I hope you're now ready to get started on that pension journey, and you'll find more information available throughout Pension Awareness Month to really guide you along the way. So bye for now, everyone, and have a great rest of the afternoon. Bye all.